You scroll through hundreds of job descriptions, but they all sound the same. You spend so much time on every application, but it doesn't seem to matter. You send off application after application, but never hear back. You thought the interview went so well, but it's a no. You jump through all the hoops. The news keeps saying how there are all these employers that are struggling to find people to hire. So why does finding a great job have to be so hard? It doesn't seem very logical or fair. It's not. The system is broken. It's not your fault. The process most people go through to get a job is awful. But here's the good news. The system isn't very smart. In fact, it's downright dumb. It can be beaten. How? Most prospective employers and employees today are using the same old tired strategies that have been around forever. It's like professional camouflage. Everybody just blends into the crowd. But you don't have to be that way anymore. You can get traction. You can stand out from the crowd to unleash your God-given potential, to help a world in need, to do work that matters, to earn what you and your family deserve. You can do this. You're meant to do this. There are bright things on the horizon for you. This is the way. Hey there, welcome to the workshop. Get hired fast without settling, getting ignored, or losing hope. My name is Eric Woodard. I'm a career and leadership coach based out of Washington, D.C. And if you're joining us here today, really just want to acknowledge you for being here, know how valuable your time is. And depending on where you are in the world, the weather's starting to get really nice. It's April Fool's Day, which is like one of the best days. And you're choosing to spend some of your time here. Want to assure you that nothing I'm going to offer you in this workshop today is an April Fool's. And that being said, you can rest assured that this whole workshop is pretty much going to be one long big sales pitch. Nah, it's not going to be a sales pitch. I don't have anything to really sell you, at least not on this workshop. It's going to be chock full of like strategies and tactics, especially if you're somebody who's been having trouble getting traction in your job search. You couldn't be in a better place than you are right now. So we're going to get going without much further delay. I will say some of you have mentioned already before you got on this workshop that you already know that you want to talk to us about getting help with your job. If that's you, we're going to put the link to book a call with us in the chat because our calendar is going to fill up. I think the next available slot we have is Friday. So we're going to put that link in the chat right now. And just so you know, just so glad to have you here. So let's get started. And what I would ask folks to do, if you would, and I see we've got Kingsley and Cody and Kabir and Brenda. If you would put in the chat where you're from and how long you've been on the job search. Okay. And we'll start rocking and rolling because sometimes, my friends, being on a job search can feel a lot like pounding sand. Sometimes it can feel like waiting on a glacier. Sometimes it can feel like you are adrift at sea. Sometimes being on a long job search, Amir, I see you there, Amir. Amir's already got a question. Sometimes it can feel like wandering through the desert. Again, if you would there we go. We got Kabir from Mumbai and Cody from Denver. First week on the job search. I see you, Takaris in Atlanta. Sometimes it can feel like being in the arena, Amir. Sometimes it can feel like looking into an abyss, Kabir. Sometimes it's just not very fun. So Chad in Florida, 2 months. Who is this for? If you are somebody who is unsure about the direction you want your career to go, if you've been struggling to find ways to describe what you do, if you're uncertain, hi there, Brenda, uncertain about if your resume is any good, if you've been wrestling with how to follow up after you apply, Chad in LA and Rich in Fargo, if you're tired of applying and hearing nothing back, if you are doing interviews and seem to go great, but you still get a big no, Trisha in Texas and John in LA. If you're trapped in a job you don't like and you're just not sure how you can escape, and especially if you're losing hope, Isaiah in Maryland, hope that's not you, this is a workshop for you. On the other hand, if you are somebody who's just kind of super casual about your career, not willing to do much work, reluctant to take responsibility for the results you've been getting, you're really just interested in finding a job to make money. If you're stuck in your ways and sort of closed-minded about doing anything new because you know all the reasons you haven't been getting traction in your job search, Josh in Chicago, I know that's not you, then this may not be the place for you. So what you're going to learn in this workshop, I'm going to offer you some great strategies and tactics about how to get hired fast without settling, getting ignored, or losing hope. 4 strategies, 9 tactics, so that you can do work that matters and pays what you and your family deserve. So here we go. So folks, the way this is going to work, we've got not a huge crowd today, which is nice, which means there's going to be lots of chances to ask questions. And by the way, if you're here live, you are extra cool. If you're watching this as a replay, you are also cool. Not quite as cool as the people who are here live, but also fairly cool. Quite cool. I would say mostly cool. So if you have questions, put them in the chat. And if we don't have time to get through them as we go, because we're going to go pretty fast, we'll have time at the end. So here we go. Our agenda. I'm just going to say really briefly, just a little bit about me. So, kind of maybe I might possibly know what I'm talking about. Give you 4 strategies, 9 tactics to elevate your job search. And then I am going to invite you, for those who are interested, to book a call with us. Some people who have joined this call already know they want help. They've already reached out and said, hey, can we book a call? I need help. And so if that's you, thanks. We've got Jessa and Ann here today helping us. They put the link in the chat. And then we're going to have time for questions. Sound good? Here we go. So who is this guy and why does he think he can help me find a job? Well, I don't know if I can help you find a job or not. I've helped a whole bunch of people. Maybe I could help you. Let's find out. I grew up overseas. I didn't really come to the States until I was 17, and I had a hard time, right? I wound up transferring colleges 7 times. And then here I am in the Midwest wondering why it's so damn cold, right? I mostly grew up in Asia, came to the States, and so I wound up as a scuba instructor on Guam, which was great. Guam was nice. A lot of fish under the water. It was beautiful. And after about a couple years of doing that, I thought, I really got to figure out this job stuff. My brain's getting mushy. So I thought, what would be the most prestigious job I could have? And I thought, well, that must be something like the White House. So I took out a piece of paper and wrote the world's worst cover letter and sent that in and figured, well, I'm never hearing back from those guys. But I was riding my bike past the Guam post office about a month later, and the guy came out with like this envelope. And he's like, Eric, you got a letter from the White House. And I'd never seen White House stationery before. I thought that was pretty cool, but I opened it up and it was an internship application. Now, I didn't know what the hell an internship was, but I was really good at filling out applications because I transferred so many times. So I filled that out and sent it in. And I thought, well, I'm never hearing back from those bastards. But that got me thinking. I applied to some grad schools and I wound up getting into GW. I sort of landed with this big bushy haircut and was dumpster diving for furniture and trying to figure it out. And I bought some running shoes and was out running past the White House one day. And I thought, those White House people, they never even bothered to let me know about that internship thing. So I found a payphone, I put in a quarter and I said, hey, you White House, I don't know if I called them bastards, but I might have. I said, hey, you White House bastard. I said, what about that internship thing? And they're like, is this Eric from Guam? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in DC now. They're like, man, you're supposed to start in the First Lady's office on Monday. We've been trying to get in touch with you. So I said, well, that was interesting. So I went out, bought a pair of shoes, got a haircut, and I showed up. And look, folks, I know we're in a political season right now. I have no idea if my politics match yours. Please forgive me if they don't. This was back during the Clinton administration. This tells you how old I am. And I started working for Hillary Rodham Clinton. And she was an awesome boss. And I learned a lot from her, learned a lot in Hillary land, eventually got hired on her staff. And I wound up, after the Clinton administration, following her to the Senate, where I was with her for all 8 years. Then I followed her to the State Department, where I did UNESCO stuff. And eventually I left Hillary land and became director of fellowships and internships at the Smithsonian. And all during this time, working with young professionals, but truly professionals at all levels, right? Mid-career professionals, senior people, executives, ambassadors, muckety mucks, right? I saw this same pattern all the time. Program managers, vice presidents, CEOs, directors, you name it, right? The same pattern where, thank you, Natalia, I appreciate that, right? The same pattern where, people were having a hard time figuring out career stuff. So now I give a lot of talks. I do a lot of coaching. I've written a whole bunch of books. I have all these really fancy degrees and certifications. I have glowing testimonials. I'm really amazing. And you don't care about any of that. Because what you care about is, can I help you? I don't know. Probably, maybe. I helped a lot of people who come to this very workshop just like you. So let's find out. Let's see if we can help you. So buckle up because we're going to go pretty fast. So here are 4 strategies that you can put to work right away to help you with your job search. Here we go. So I'd ask you guys to put the answer in the chat here. What's a good resume about? Hey there, Kingsley. Appreciate that. What is a good resume about? Put it in the chat, please. What's a good resume about? And there's a little bit of a delay, right? A little bit of a delay between when I ask stuff and it shows up. So Kingsley, if you're looking for help, book a call with us. Let's see if we can help you. So what's a good resume about? Put it in the chat. So Kabir says it's about projection. Okay. That's an interesting answer. Any other takers? What's a good resume about? Let's see. Oh, Chad says it's about you. That's interesting, Chad. Okay. Tariq says your next career. We got showing. Cody says, okay, about who you are and what you've accomplished. Ooh, John, selling yourself. Okay, so here's what I'm seeing in a lot of these answers from Brenda and John and Kingsley and Trisha and Thomas. Okay, I'm seeing that you guys are saying a good resume is about you. Kingsley, I like what you say about story, by the way. But here's the thing. That answer is incorrect. A lot of resumes are about you and they're not very good ones because a good resume isn't about you. A good resume is about them. You want to be influential with another human being? The last thing you want to do is talk about you. You want to talk about them. That's right, Gonzalo. You want to talk about the employer, right? And when I say resume, I mean your cover letter, your follow-up, your networking, your interview, all of it. It's all about them. So this is strategy number 1. It's not about you. It's about them. And it's no wonder that we often treat a job search like it's about us because very often, probably the first job search we ever went on was out of school. And in school, thanks for Amara, in school, it is about us. It's our cubby. It's our report card. It's our worksheet. It's our trophy. It's our transcript. And yet when we move to the working world, it's not about us. It's about them. It's about the customer, the client, the constituent, the shareholder. And yet somehow we don't make this connection. And so people will have one of those big paragraphs at the top of their resume talking all about myself. And when they're in an interview and they say, tell us about yourself, they actually answer. Can you believe it? No wonder they're having trouble in their job search. And maybe you are too. So application, not about you. Employers are focused on themselves. The opportunity for you is to be focused on them too. Make the application about them. So that's strategy number 1, right? If you get nothing else out of this workshop, make it about them. Okay, we are on to strategy number 2. So if I went to a library and I found a shelf full of storybooks and I looked at the front cover of all those storybooks, there'd be some words. What would we call those words, at least in English? What are those words called? What are those words? Yeah, what do we call those words that we put on the front of a storybook? Right? So Kingsley says a resume that tells a story back with, metrics. I hear you about metrics, Kingsley. We'll talk about metrics. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. What are those words that are on the front cover of a storybook? What are those words called? Susan got it right. It's a title. That's exactly right. Right? Those words are called a title. That's right, Gonzalo. It's a title. Right? It's a title. See, you guys know how tricky I am. You're like, is he talking about a title? That's right. Now, isn't it interesting that that's the same term we use to label people in the workplace? Which tells me that what we call people in the workplace is just a story, just like the title we might put on a storybook. And this brings us to the next strategy, which is strategy number 2. And Kingsley, we're actually going to get to your point right now. Let me ask you this. What percent of human decision-making is emotional and what percent is logical? Put it in the chat. What percent is emotional to logical? Is it 50-50, 60-40, 40-60? Let's see if anybody gets it right. Okay. Yeah. What is it? All right. What percent is emotional and what percent is logical? Put it in the chat. Let's see if anybody gets it right. Human decision-making. So Matt says it's 90-10. Okay. Rich agrees 90-10. Thomas says 75-25. Chad's 24-80. Brenda says 80-30. Okay. Yeah. Nobody's gotten it right yet. Because here's the right answer. Human decision-making is 100% emotional. It's 100% emotional. And the reason we know it's 100% emotional is when somebody gets their limbic system damaged, the part that deals with emotion, they're fine. They're absolutely fine, except they can't make a single decision. And that's the debilitating part, right? That's the debilitating part. So you want to make sure that you're putting stories into your stuff, because stories are how we convey emotion. Right? Those of you who got on this call, you already very quickly decided whether I'm somebody you want to listen to, somebody who might be able to help you. You decided in about 3 seconds, and that decision was 100% emotional. And it was probably based on whether I reminded you of somebody you liked or didn't, or, like what your opinion is of middle-aged white guys, or whatever the hell it is, right? I don't know. But you made the decision, and now you're just using data to rationalize it. But remember, the initial decision is 100% emotional, and stories are how we convey emotion, not facts, not data, right? Everybody walks around and say, we make data-driven decisions. No, they don't. Of course they don't. Nobody does, right? We'll rationalize the decision with data, but the original decision is emotional, right? So many job seekers think that, sorry, Kingsley, right? People they're like, well, if I just give them enough facts, if I have interviewed at Amazon, it was a while ago, and I have had clients that interviewed at Amazon, and Amazon says, we're data-driven. You can give them all the facts in the world. They don't care. Right? It doesn't matter. And if Amazon's listening, I'm sorry. Forgive me. Don't sue me. Right? But no, I humbly suggest they not. They're going to remember how you make them feel, right? Which Maya Angelou is often attributed to saying, right? You want to make your application a story. And remember that the titles and all the stuff that you're telling them is just a story. Not talking about lying, but definitely storytelling. One time I was looking through a pile of applications, and one of the people in there had written an essay about how the summer before, her name was Maggie, the summer before she'd been in a terrible accident and her arm had been severed. That's quite a story. So we brought her into the program. She walks in the first day. I'm like getting ready. I'm like wanting to make sure she has accessibility and all that kind of stuff. She walks in, 2 arms. Now it was bandaged from where it had been partially severed and reattached, and she was doing some physical therapy, but she was fine. Was I upset? Of course not. I was so glad she had both her arms. And I remember this story to this day. I probably couldn't tell you a lot of facts about Maggie, though. And if I asked you how you felt on your 5th birthday, you could probably tell me a lot. But if I asked you what your phone number was, I always get in trouble when I say this, because there's going to be somebody that's like, I remember. Most of us wouldn't remember what our phone number was. So on to the next strategy. Here we go. Who could tell me who this guy is? What is this guy called? I'll give you a hint. He comes from Idaho. What is this guy's name? Who knows what this guy's name is? He's in electoral politics. I'll give you that also as a hint. He likes ligers. They're one of his favorite animals. I think it's liger. I could have that wrong. Yes, Susan. Thank you, Gonzalo. Thank you. Yes, Chad. It is quite a good movie. This is Napoleon Dynamite. Now, those of you who haven't seen Napoleon Dynamite, first of all, stop your job search and please just go watch Napoleon Dynamite. Come on, folks. We're trying to create a society here. And here's the deal with Napoleon Dynamite. That's right. Eat your food, Tina. Exactly. Right? Napoleon's a high school kid, and he finds himself in this particular scene where he's on stage in front of his entire student body, and he's managed to get a mixtape up to the sound booth, but he's on the hook to do some kind of performance. Right? Hey, Jenna, nice to see you too, right? Like he's on stage to do some kind of performance, and it's not really planned. So the music starts playing, and Napoleon just does this performance, and it's the wildest damn thing you've ever seen. I mean, it is crazy. And he just like metaphorically opens the kimono. I mean, this kid's wild. And when he's done, he's sort of sweating and panting, right? It's pretty rough. And the whole student body's looking at him like this, and then they erupt in applause. And the reason it works is because it's so authentic. Jamie Kern Lima, the founder of It Cosmetics, says everybody's a good dancer if they commit fully. And she's right. And this brings us to the 3rd strategy, which is authenticity. People are going to hire you because of who you are, not in spite of it. And those of you who've been trying to hide your age or taking off experience or hiding stuff, stop. How's that working in your job search, by the way? I don't even need you to tell me, right? Like, stop doing that, right? It's never the scandal. It's always the cover up. So many try and be perfect. Stop doing that. Humans hire humans. Now, I can hear you collectively. Many of you are thinking, but Eric, what about the ATS? What about the algorithm? What about the ATS? Stop. People who spend a lot of time trying to sell you ATS friendly resumes are kind of in the business of making ATS really important. Sure. Are there companies out there that use software to help sort their things? Yes. And they're all different and we don't know how they work. And at the end of the day, it's a human that looks at it. So look, folks, we still have thumbs. So stop, like Skynet has not taken over the world yet. So until it does, write your resume and your application towards a human. Be authentic. And if you've been covering up your age, stop doing that. They're going to think you're 97 years old. And if you're 97 years old, own it. Okay. Be human, be relatable. One time I was looking at a stack, or I was helping Nina. And I was having this conversation with Nina and we're going through her resume. And I'm like, Nina, what do you like to do for fun? She's like, well, I don't want to tell you. I'm like, no, what do you like to do for fun? She's like, well, I collect pens. I'm like, well, Nina, that's super weird. You got to put that on there. She's like, oh no, I couldn't. I could never do that. That's too sophomoric. I'm like, put it on there. Argue with her for 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, do what you want. I hear from her a month later. She calls to tell me that she went in for the interview. They talked about pens for 30 minutes, and then she got the job. Can't tell you how often I argue with my clients and get them to do this, and this makes all the difference. We had a client in the fall. She put on her resume, this was her idea too. I thought it was brilliant. 2 truths and a lie. She got 2 interviews and 2 offers just from doing that. You can too. You can too. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is why people sign up to work with us, by the way. And by the way, if you haven't already done that, let's put the sign up in there. So, so if people want to have more tips like this, they can find out how. Okay. Authenticity is your superpower. So Abe Lincoln says, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And he's right. Okay. He's right. Thanks. Thanks, Jess and Ann. Okay. Which brings us to, you want to have consistency. You want to have a system. Look, if you're having trouble in your job search right now, getting traction, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you, Jenna and Natalia and Kingsley. There's nothing wrong with you, right? It's just the system that you have. And the results you're currently getting are perfectly attuned to your current system. So if you want to get different results, you're going to want to change your system. Now, look, the system you have now is probably like a little kitty gearbox like this, and it's got like a sticky gear shift and like a sticky button, and you have done wonders with this system. And you've tried every setting. And you're wondering, I've tried every setting. Why won't it work? Well, what you don't realize is there's a whole control room of other settings that you don't even know about. And when people work with us, we show them that control room. We don't know exactly what their setting will be, but we know it exists. And we tend to know what settings tend to work for different people. And so that's what you want. You want to have a system where it allows you to work smart, not hard, right? You want to get the quality of your stuff first, and then you're going to ramp up the quantity, right? And if what you're doing isn't working, we're not going to keep doing the same thing, hoping for different results, because that's the definition of insanity. So if you've been doing that, don't do that. And remember, there's no such thing as a failed experiment, right? That's not a thing. It's not about you. It's about your systems. Kingsley says, when an employer asks for age in the application process, would it be to employ the younger? Well, first of all, they can't ask that. That's illegal. So if they're asking that, you can leave that blank. Okay. That's legal. And they're probably not actually asking that, because if they were, they would have a pretty quick legal problem. Yeah. So that's not a thing. And let's say they did, for argument's sake, let's say they did ask you your age, right? I turned 52 last Friday. Yeah. Just own it. Right. Because if I were like, ooh, like, I don't want to tell you, see, the minute we hide our stuff, all of a sudden they're like, well, you know, Natalia's worried about it. Maybe I should worry about it. So like that. Okay, folks. So how do you put this all to work? I just wanted to show an example of what's possible. Here in a second, I'm going to show a video from Angel. Angel worked with us in the fall, and she actually just got hired about a month ago, and she attended a workshop just like this, decided to sign up for a call, decided to get different results than the results that she'd been getting. And this is what happened. This was on a group call, and it happened just exactly like you're about to see it here. Okay, guys, roll it. In the time we've got left, I'm curious, especially if there's somebody we haven't heard from yet. They've had a win, a loss. Angel, I got to ask you, what do we know, if anything? What do we know?
I got the job. Yay!
Whoa!
offer. I'm moving in a week. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. And I know when we first met, you're like, oh, like, let's get something by your birthday. And my birthday is in 4 days. So I was able to do it. Yay.
And I just want to acknowledge you. Like, you dove in, you did it, you did the work.
Thank you.
Way to go.
It would not have been possible without like signing up for this program. Truly. I think it made the difference for me.
So good, Angel.
Yeah.
Really happy for you. Super awesome. Congratulations to you. Yeah. In the I could watch that all day. And I see here Natalia says some ask for the age bracket. So folks, like on this question about age, like sometimes employers will on an application, like at the end, they'll ask you for race and ethnicity and gender and that kind of stuff. In theory, that stuff's supposed to be compartmentalized from any decision makers about the job. That's an employer trying to make sure that they're accessing, a diverse workforce. That's kind of EEO stuff. In theory, if they're following the law, that'll be separate from any sort of thing, job decisions. So if that's what you're talking about, yeah, you just put your age. But in the job searching process, yeah, they're not going to be asking you about your age, or if they are, like, you might have a nice lawsuit on your hands. If it's part of the EO questions, that's different. Okay, so how do you put this all to work? 9 tactics, and we're going to go really fast. So buckle up. Here we go. Okay, folks, if you've been watching the replay or you've sort of been trimming your bonsai tree and you haven't been paying attention, then definitely you're going to want to listen to this. Okay, here it is right now. Let's say there's a lake, and in the middle of the lake, someone's drowning. Now they're surrounded by other people in little boats. Okay, so somebody's in the middle of a lake drowning, and they're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that was a job search, who's the person drowning? Okay, so who's the person drowning? If there's somebody drowning in the middle of the lake, surrounded by other people in little boats, if that was a job search, who's the person drowning? So Matt says, who actually looks at the EO questions? So it's a different part of the organization. In theory, it's supposed to be like the HR people. Thomas says to me, it's supposed to be the HR people, not like the hiring managers, right? And actually, in theory, they're supposed to just like cut. That's why it's usually at the end they separate it out. So and it's, not all companies do that. They're supposed to. I think most do, but yeah, I hear you on that, Matt. Okay, so who's the person drowning? Tariq says the employer. That's awesome. Oh, I think Thomas was saying me. He's the one drowning. Okay, maybe so. Okay, who's the person drowning? So in the middle of the lake, someone's drowning. They're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that was a job search, who's the person drowning? Okay, who's the person drowning? Let's see if we can get a few more, because I suspect a lot of you are acting and thinking like you're the one drowning because you've got bills and maybe you've got family members who are saying, well, just settle, just get a job. But you guys are on the ball. Chad says it's the company. Tarek says it's the company, right? Right? That's right. Or the recruiter, right? Brenda says it's the employer. And you know what? I have to agree with you, right? You're not the one drowning. The employer's the one drowning. And the reason we know the employer is the one drowning is they've told us. They put out a job description. They've said, help, we're drowning. That's right, Kingsley. We're drowning. We're drowning in work. The people in the boats are actually the applicants. However, sometimes applicants will row up and somebody's drowning and they'll say things like this: I'm the best one for you. Let me tell you about all my qualifications. Well, I'm the best one. And the person drowning is like, well, I don't know if you're the best one or not, but I'm not going to trust you. Like, that's creepy. Why are you so interested in saving, right? Where other people are going to come up and say, hey, you're drowning. That's terrible. That must be so scary. Let's have a conversation about how we might be able to get your butt out of the water. I don't know if I'm the right one, but what's important here is not that I pull you out of the water. What's important here is you don't drown and die. Okay. And this brings us to the first tactic, which is mindset. You want to approach your job search from a place of service. Those of you who are busy trying to sell yourselves or saying, oh, I'm the best for you, or saying, I hope they pick me, stop. It's not effective, right? Remember, they're the one drowning. They'll be lucky to get you. And if they don't want to pick you, that's fine. There's lots of other drowning people. And by the way, there's lots of other people in little boats. Okay. You want to approach this from a place of service. And this is really, really key. Okay. You don't need their job. You need a job. Now, look, there's only one Tarek and Kingsley and Natalia and Chad. So remember, they're the ones drowning. People don't like to be sold. They like to be served. All right, let's go on to tactic number 2. Some of you may have seen the show Deadliest Catch. And if you haven't, the gist of it is there's these crab fishermen in Alaska. They're usually on this sort of somewhat dangerous boat, and they put these big steel cages on the bottom of the ocean with a little bit of bait to catch some crab. And a crab comes along and says, "Oh, free lunch," and goes in and starts nibbling. And then his buddy Sally comes and says, "Oh, there's Sprite." So more and more crabs join. And eventually the bait's gone, but more and more crabs will join because crabs instinctively like to be with other crabs. It's how they roll. Okay. Now here's the interesting part. Let's say Charlie the crab's like, "You know what? I'm out of here, guys. The bait's gone." When Charlie tries to crawl out, the other crabs will pull him back in, or any crab. They'll even pull off one of Charlie's limbs. They'll even kill Charlie. They'll do a crab murder in order to keep all the crabs together. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is environment. This is so key. A lot of us are thinking, well, I'm having trouble in my job search just because I don't have the right mindset or the right discipline. Nah, your environment eats that stuff for lunch. Okay. So the opportunity for you, if you haven't been thinking about it, is to dial in your environment. This is your physical environment, but more than anything, it's your emotional, spiritual, and psychological environment. This can depend on what you're listening to, the people. Some of you may have heard of reference group. You're the average weight, income, education, the 5 people you hang out with. It's the people you're reading. They could have died 100 years ago. It doesn't matter. You're still hanging out with them, right? Think about your environment, and it's a huge mistake not to. You want to be intentional. You want to safeguard it. And if the environment you're in isn't serving you, you want to change your environment as much as you can. Okay. Don't take it for granted. All right. Tactic number 3, it's hard to hit a blurry target. Can't tell you how often I talk to job seekers, and I'll be like, "Well, Trisha or Romara, what do you," and it's not you guys, Trisha, I'm just picking on, and Romara, I'm just picking on you guys, right? Like, "What do you want to do?" And the person will say, "Well, I want to help people." And I'm like, single tier of Diet Coke. I'm like, "That's beautiful." And then I'll say, "Well, how much do you want to make?" They're like, "I don't know, anywhere between like 50 and 150 grand. Also beautiful. But here's the problem. Bruce Lee told us, be careful what you tell yourself because your body's listening. And this has to do with a thing called the reticular activating system. And what this is when you go and buy a new car and you're like, nobody's got this car, and you drive it off the lot, suddenly you see it 5 times. Our brain will literally see what we tell it to look for. And if what we tell it to look for is super vague and undefined, it won't see it. See, if I say red right now, you're instantly somewhat more aware of the color red, wherever you're sitting, just because I said it. Now your brain's looking for it. And it's the same thing with job search. You want to have real clarity about your salary, your occupation, your goal. It's not just, "Oh, I don't know, we'll see." That's not serving you. It's more than just that it's helpful. It's vital, right? There's a reason NASCAR drivers, when they drive 500 miles in a circle, that they don't look at the outer wall. It's because the car is going to tend to go where they look. And it's the same thing with you. And if you don't have a clear focus on where you want to go, your car's just going to kind of wander, and it may even hit the outer wall and go boom. And we don't want that to happen. All right, folks, here I got another question for you. Let's put this in the chat. If I went to the store and I bought this, what would I be buying? If I went to the store and I bought this thing, what would I be buying? What would I be buying? Let's see if anybody gets it. I like your target, Romara. Thanks for playing, right? Like, what would I be buying if I went to the store and I bought this thing here? Anybody know? Let's see if anybody gets it right. Why? What would I need? So Ramar says a tool. Kingsley says brain program. That may have been a different answer. Okay. Trisha says a tool. Okay. Big paperweight without a battery, says Thomas. A drill brand tool, says Brenda. A sub-branded Milwaukee drill, says Tarek. Okay. I haven't seen the right answer yet. A necessity, says Takaris. Okay, so here's the thing. Carla says tools and focus. Here's the thing. If I went to buy this, right, nobody actually needs this lying around your house. What you actually need is a hole, right? I don't need this big yellow thing sitting in my garage. What I really need is a hole. And actually, I don't really need holes in my wall. What I really need is a place to put the hook. And actually, I don't need a bunch of hooks hanging on my wall. I'll gash my arm open. What I really need is a place to hang a picture of my family. And actually, I don't even really need a picture of my family on the wall. What I really want is the feeling I get when I look at the picture of my sweet, beautiful family that I love so much, that's hanging on the wall, on the hook, that's in the hole that was made by the drill. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is giving them safety, right? What most people do in a job search is they're just talking about themselves. And that's a hot dumpster fire. Don't do that, right? And talk about them. And when you do talk about them, you don't want to talk about the drill. You want to talk about the thing they're thinking about when they go to bed at night, looking at the ceiling, and it's keeping them up. If you can get to that level of granularity, you win. You win. See how this is so much more powerful than like hiding your age and trying to trick algorithms? If you've been having trouble in your job search, it's because possibly you're working at the wrong level. You want to work at this level, right? You want to give them safety. You want to make them really understand that you understand, that you're really clear about what they like, want, and need. What keeps them up at night? How can you make them feel seen, heard, and understood? You want to crush it in an interview? Do this. Don't sell yourselves. Do this. Okay. Tactic number 5. We are rocking and rolling. Paper. So this is a copy of one of my resumes, right? My resume is sort of like the model home of resumes, but paper matters. And look, folks, resumes are stupid. They really are. The idea that we're going to boil our lives down to a single couple pieces of paper is ridiculous. It's already pretty arbitrary and curated. And anybody tells you there's one right way to do a resume, don't listen to them. And resumes are the least bad way we've come up with so far in job searching. Okay. So we already talked about a good resume is about who? A good resume is about them. Okay. And your paper matters, right? If you got one of those resumes with that big block of text at the top that's talking all about yourself, stop, right? If you've been using something like Teal, which is an automated program, I can spot a Teal resume about 5 miles away, right? You don't want your stuff to look like everybody else. You want to look different. If you're trying to show them that you're exceptional and you're remarkable, then show them that. Don't have your stuff look like everybody else. Don't follow best practices, for goodness sake. It's professional camouflage. And remember that the paper you send, the letter, cover letter, how you send it, when you send it, who you send it, what you say, it's just a communication piece. You want to communicate with them in a way they cannot ignore. So for instance, does your resume have hyperlinks, right? Is it about you or is it about them? I would argue that if you want to get traction, make your resume about them. It's one of the things we work on in the Get Hired Fast program. Okay, here we are on to the next tactic. Thank you, Romana. If a job application is submitted, but there's no follow-up, does it even make a sound? I would humbly submit that it doesn't. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is tactic number 6, follow-up. When you send an application, how is your follow-up? And some of you are like, well, yeah, I follow up and I get the interview. No. You follow up. And some of you are like, well, but I don't know who to follow up with. I bet you could find out. If someone you love most in the world's lives depend on you finding somebody, I bet you could get an email or a phone number or a LinkedIn or an Instagram or something. And guess what? I'll give you a hint. When you follow up, it doesn't sound like this. Just wanted to check in, just wondering how it's going. I'm really passionate about what you do. Because that's all about you. So don't do that. Okay. And some of you are like, well, isn't it pushy to follow up? Or what if they say in the job description, don't follow up? What if you were willing to offend in the name of service, right? Let's go back to the water example. Somebody's floating face down in the water and you said, hey, buddy, are you okay? And they don't move. You wouldn't be like, I don't want to bother them. They're motionless face down in the water, but I don't want to bother them. I'll just wait. No, you jump in the water. You'd flip them over, right? You might even start doing mouth to mouth. And if the guy came to and was like, lady, I'm just snorkeling, you'd be like, my bad. But you'd be okay risking that to make sure that they didn't die. And it's the same thing with this, right? People are going to believe what you show them more than what you tell them. And you can go on and on about how you take initiative and you take risks and you're a go-getter, or you could show them, right? Initiative is rewarded. A guy named Darren Hardy used to publish Success Magazine, redheaded white guy in a shiny suit. It's exactly what you'd imagine, right? He tells a story about when he was a young realtor. He would watch the MLS, and when a listing came expired with a selling realtor, he'd be like, a lot of realtors would call mid-morning and say, hey, you need a new realtor to sell your house. He would show up at their door, 6 a.m. in a full suit and a clipboard, knocking on the door. They'd sort of open up and they'd be like, who are you? And be like, I'm Darren Hardy. I'm here to sell your house. And if they didn't sign with him then, around mid-morning, they'd get a big gift basket. Around early afternoon, an associate would show up with a big sold sign. And Darren says he lost about 1 out of 5 for being too assertive, and he got the other 4. Be willing to offend in the name of service. If the reason you are applying is because they're drowning and you see possibility in what's possible for them, show them that. So much more powerful than selling yourselves. Okay, Here we go. All right, guys. Now, look, when I work with clients, this is one of the biggest things that we run into. And if you're not doing this, you're really leaving a lot on the table. And this, you ever see the Academy Awards where some movie star gets up there and they've won some big prize and they start to give their speech and they say, yeah, I got nobody to thank. And it's sort of awkward. And there's this, and they, no, they get up there and they have 500 people to thank. They're playing the music. They're trying to get them off stage, right? When people do great things, they don't do it alone. They do it with others. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is networking. If I asked many of you to go to your address book and ask how many of those people that are in that address book right now know that you're on the job search and that you could use their help, most of you would say, well, maybe some. And I'd ask how, and you'd say, well, I posted on LinkedIn 3 months ago. And I'd say, well, that meant that those people would have had to go to LinkedIn that day and seen your profile. And not only that, but they would have had to remember that and assume that you hadn't found a job in the last 3 months because they hadn't heard from you. Your network wants to help you. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. You could be 1 or 2 emails away from finding this job that you've been working so hard to find and you haven't gotten traction on. It's one of the things that we do in my program. And look, by the way, if you haven't signed up for a call with us, we're going to drop that link right now. Like, what are you waiting for? And we're going to talk about that here in a second, because if this stuff is different than what you've been hearing and it's resonating with you, just saying, okay, ask for help. It's giving a gift. It doesn't make you weak. Like, there's one reason they're going to hire you. So they trust you. That's it, right? No one-offs, right? We don't want to send one-off messages asking for help because it's too inefficient. We want to filter the ocean. It's one of the things we do in the program that I have when we work with clients. Okay, tactic number 8, interviews. Now, I just said there's only one reason they're going to hire you, and that's not your experience. It's not who you know. It's not your education. It's that they trust you. It's not even that they like you. They may like you, and if they don't trust that you see, hear, and understand them and you can help them move forward, they're not going to hire you. They may actually not like you and trust that you understand and can help them, and they will hire you. So your whole purpose in going into an interview is establish trust. Here's the best interview advice in the world. You may want to write it down. I'll wait. Here it is. You ready? Don't answer their questions. They're liars, right? When you go into an interview and they're like, well, walk me through your resume and tell us about a time and blah, blah, blah. They are lying. They actually don't care about any of that. What they care about is, can we trust you? If we had a universal translator and we put it next to somebody in a job interview and they said, tell me about a time you took a risk, it would go blah, 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 and it would come out and it would say, can we trust you? Can we trust you? It'd be a pretty funny Saturday Night Live skit, right? That's all they're asking. So when you go into an interview, stop trying to ask, look, if it's like a technical interview and it's real black and white, sure, give them the answer. But if it's anything resembling a behavioral interview where they're trying to get a sense of you, they're trying to determine if they can trust you, give them answers that are going to help them trust you. Tell stories that are going to do the same. It's not about performing. It's about connecting. Okay. All right, guys. Tactic number 9. I think this is the last one. We are in the home stretch. You guys are rock stars. Let's talk about offers. Very often I'll work with people and I'll say something like, hey, have you been applying for a lot of jobs? And they'll be like, no, Eric, I'm actually really particular about where I apply. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. And they'll say, well, you got to understand, see, I'm particular about where I apply because if I got an offer, and then I may not even want that job, and then I have to move the family to Connecticut. And I'm like, stop. Here's something to understand. 1, you don't have to worry about whether you want a job unless and until it's offered. Because you really don't know if you're going to want it or not until you see that offer. I mean, it's understandable but it's sort of that you would think about it, but it's sort of just like a thought exercise. 2, you don't have to worry about whether you're qualified. They've got that covered. They'll have an opinion, right? And actually, they're probably less worried about whether you're qualified than they are about whether they could trust you. Navy SEALs do this, right? They put all their candidates on a chart, and the axes of the chart are good at being a Navy SEAL or trustworthy. And if somebody's like 90% good at being a Navy SEAL, but like 60% trustworthy, they get booted out. If somebody's like 60% being good at a Navy SEAL and 90% trustworthy, they move forward, right? They value trust so much more. And all employers do. They just might not have such a fancy chart. Okay. Yeah. You want to apply liberally from a place of service. Instead of looking at instead of looking at all or job listings and think, would I want to do that? Am I qualified for that? Ask the question, could I help? Right? What's possible for them? All right, guys. So write this down, right? You guys have so many of you who've been so good to stay with us here. 4 strategies, 9 tactics. Many of you have been waking up every morning on your job search, and the thought you've had is maybe today will be the day. Maybe today will be the day. Today will be different. I've been waiting and 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 waiting. Maybe today something different will happen that's happened yesterday and the day before. Maybe I won't be doing the definition of insanity by doing the same thing, hoping to get different results. I just want to invite you to consider that what if today is that day, right? Some of you have like heard this stuff and you're like, yeah, and it hasn't really landed. Others of you are like, holy shit, this is different than the stuff I've heard before. This is different than what I've been doing. Now, some of you are thinking, I'm going to go do it on my own. That's fine. And a lot of times I hear from people that do that 6 months later and they're like, I haven't been doing it on my own. I'm like, I know, they sign up and then they get hired in a month, right? So I want to tell you, I've got a program. I mentioned it. I'm not going to give you a big sales pitch here on this call because I promised that I wouldn't. And I want to take a stand for you because there's not very much that's linear or logical or fair about job hunting. And this is a program that breaks through that. Some of you right now are thinking, gosh, I would sure love to do that program and I can't afford it. And I just want to offer you that, look, if you don't have a single dollar to your name, don't book a call with us but here's the thing. There's nobody on this call right now that's in that situation, because if you were actually in that situation, you wouldn't have the power and the internet and the computer and the phone to be on this call. So I just want to offer you that nobody's on this call in this situation. And if you're looking for help, like, you don't have to do this on your own. Like, we got all kinds of payment plans. They start at like $100 a month, right? People join the program, they get hired, and then they pay off the balance because now they have a salary and they're not doing this on their own. So, hey, Thomas just signed up for a call. Nice job, Thomas. So look, if you're looking to get help with this stuff, book a call with us and let's get this stuff handled. You don't have to do this on your own. Or, and I say this with a lot of love, like, you can just keep doing this on your own and like maybe lightning will strike. And I'm cheering for you. Okay, let's take some questions. Let's take some questions right now. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. I want to give you the full size of my head. It's like a planet. Okay, and I know we have a little bit of a smaller group, so I'm curious, what questions do we have now, or what questions have come in that we could get handled right now? Let's see here. What questions do we have? Okay, here we go. This is from Amir. Thank you, Ann and Jessa. How does one incentivize a headhunter to profit in the form of success fee from placing you? So here's the thing about headhunters and recruiters, and this could offend a lot of them if they're on this call. They have a conflict of interest. And part of the reason that you guys may have experienced some of this, you know how recruiters have a tendency to sort of just ghost you? Because the minute that you become somebody that they're not sure they want to move forward, like, you're dead to them. And it's nothing personal. It's just how the structure works. And so we want the incentive. So first of all, recruiters are fine, but if you're spending a lot of time talking to recruiters, stop doing that. Let's find the hiring managers who are actually the one drowning behind the scenes. And trust me, those of you who get those automated messages that's like, we've considered your thing and you applied 5 seconds ago, you can just ignore those. You can just ignore it. My clients do, right? Just ignore that stuff. Because what you're going to do is you're going to find the person who actually needs the help. You're going to make them feel seen, heard, and understood. And they're going to knock on the back door of the HR, the recruiter, and they're going to be like, this one, Amir, I want to talk to Amir. And they'll be like, well, Amir needs to apply through our system. Fine, he has, but we already sent him the no message. I don't care. And all of a sudden, magically, Amir will get a message. Congratulations, you're moving on. Don't be scared away by a little email. Don't be scared away by recruiters. They're good people. Their incentives are a little messed up, I would humbly suggest. And I could be wrong. Okay, here we have Natalia. In this market, I wonder what market this is. There are 5,000 applicants for a job I'm after. Sending a follow-up is another ping to thousands of applicants. What are your thoughts on this? So first of all, I don't know what market you're talking about. And Natalia, I say this with a lot of love. A lot of people talk about the market. And I would tell you, in the years I've been doing this, I've never had somebody get on the phone and say, the market is so good. The market's always bad. Right? The market's always the market. And by the way, there's lots of markets. It varies by industry and location and geography and even within an organization. So it's really easy for us to sort of, amalgamate, quote, the market. and sort of bunch it all together. I would humbly suggest it doesn't exist. And it's probably not a useful story to tell us that it does and that it's one way or the other, because it's just a form of knowing. And that could be what's holding us back. And I say that with a lot of love, Natalia. Okay. There are 5,000 applicants. Are there? How would we know? Is it because LinkedIn tells us? And how do we know what that means? And I've done research on it. Nobody knows. Is that how many people have clicked the link? Right? And let's say there are 5,000 applicants. I can guarantee most of them are doing quick apply. They're not making it about the employer. They're not following up. They're not networking. They're not doing any of that. So this isn't a numbers game. It's great that there are 5,000 applicants that are all doing the same thing. That's fantastic, because the opportunity for all of you is to do it differently, is to connect instead of perform. This is good news, because when they have 5,000 applicants, and I've been in this situation, all they want is, oh my God, there's 5,000 applicants. How do I know which one to choose? And there's Natalia that comes along. She's not talking about herself. She's not selling herself. She's making it about the employer. Hey, Kingsley, I see you just booked a call. Great job. They're making it about the employer. And all of a sudden, this isn't about Natalia versus the 5,000. This is Natalia as a universe of one. So I hope that serves you, Natalia. I hope that serves you. And I hear you about the layoffs. It sucks. And it could be, and I say this, I know it's hard. This could be the best thing that's ever happened for you. And whether it is or it isn't, the story you tell yourself matters. So be intentional about the one you tell yourself. Book a call with us, Natalia. You sound interesting. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Chad, what do you say in a follow-up? Chad, I love this question. So here's what's not to say in a follow-up. So let's say I was applying to a job and Chad was the person. I wouldn't want to say, hey, Chad, just following up. Or Chad, I sure love your organization. Or I wouldn't want to say, hey, Chad, I'm just wondering what the timeline is, because that's all questions about me. What I might want to say, and so I'm going to use Chad here as an example. And this is going to be all true, by the way. I might say something like this. Chad, what you and your organization are doing really stands out. The fact that you took your time, Chad, to come to a workshop like this on a Tuesday, on April Fool's Day, in the middle of the day, the weather's beautiful, and you took your time to come to a workshop like this, and you've stayed until the very end, and you've asked a question, stands out so much. It really is a sign that you take your career seriously. I'm wondering if you booked a call with us. Now, that would be a mistake, because I just turned it to myself. See, even I'm prone to it, right? And then I might say, so reversing what I just said, right? I might say, thanks for all you do. Sincerely, Chad, or sincerely, Eric. Now, Chad's get this message, and his first question is, who the hell's Eric? Well, he knows because he attended this workshop. Let's say he didn't. So he'll write back and he'll say, do I know you? And I'll be like, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're totally right. Let me explain, right? The reason I've been thinking about you so much, Chad, is I just applied to a job at your company. Now, Chad's the CEO. And as soon as he says job applicant, who's he going to forward it to? He's going to forward it to the head of HR, which reports to the CEO, Bob. And Bob's sitting there, doesn't know what the relationship between Chad, the CEO, and Eric is, but now it's on Bob's radar. And now Eric gets attention. And if there's any way, Bob can go back to Chad, the CEO, and say, you know what, that guy Eric, we're going to interview him. That makes Bob look good. Now, does this actually, hey, Ramara, I see you booked a call. Great job, right? Does this actually go down this way? I don't know. But is this how the real world actually works often? Yes, it actually often works this way. So hope that answers your question. Okay, next question, Kingsley, and we're going to just take a few more. How to network and lab a job interview with recruiters. So I wouldn't focus so much on recruiters because they're sort of professionally trained ninjas when it comes to blocking people from talking. They're middlemen, they're middle people, middle women, right? That's just what they are. And the reason it's very much in their interest to not have candidates talk to hiring managers is because suddenly they have no reason to exist or get paid a commission. Now, there's a reason that recruiters are out there because employers don't want to spend their time doing it. I get the argument. And I wouldn't start with recruiters. Find the hiring manager. Find the person that speaks your language, that's going to understand the value you bring, right? Not the possibly 25-year-old something recruiter who doesn't even understand the genius that you bring and the work that you've done because they weren't born when you started. And possibly they're the ones telling you, if there's experience on your resume of more than 10 years, you should really get rid of that. You know who often says that? People that don't have 10 years experience. I could be wrong. Okay, I'm not though. John S., how do you title your resume? Explain your career profile. You're seeking something different. Well, a lot of things here, John. So first of all, I wouldn't have a career profile because that's a lot of you telling them about you. And we established that a good resume isn't about you, it's about them. I wouldn't have a title, because the minute you give them a title, you rob them of the opportunity for them to assign you a title that's in their language, that makes it their idea. So I wouldn't do any of that. And we're not worried about the ATS system. I know it's been beat, it's like the boogeyman. And nobody actually knows what it is, by the way. We're like, well, it's this algorithm. What do you mean algorithm? Well, it's a software program. What do you mean? Like they get real short answers real quick. It's just sort of this amorphous thing. It's not real. Different companies have different software they use to accept resumes and go through them, right? It's not one system. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a human that decides. So my encouragement for you is stop worrying about ATS. Stop doing that. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. How's it been working so far? Putting in those keywords and making an ATS friendly resume. How many interviews you been getting from that? All right, final question. And I just so is your offer $5K for 3 months to get a job? Yeah, it is. And you don't have to pay near that much to get started, right? We have a lot of payment plans. A lot of times it starts at a couple $100 a month. And look, nobody needs a coach, right? Nobody needs a coach, right? The question is, do you want a coach, right? And how much is it costing you for every month you're not on the job right now, or every week, right? You want to make 120 grand. That's 10 grand a month, which is 2,500 a week, which means by doing a program like this one, if we get you hired a couple weeks faster, which we will, you come out ahead and you're going to get a bigger salary, right? And you're not doing this alone. So that's, some people value time more than money. And it's actually kind of not accurate, because, and I say this with a lot of love, folks, those of you who've been on a job hunt for a long time, like you're spending a lot of money here. So let's get that handled, right? Let's have you stop hemorrhaging the salary that you're not making, and let's get this taken care of. And if you're worried about the money, like, we will work with you. And if you don't have a single dollar to your name, I send you a lot of love. But that's nobody on this call, because you wouldn't be on this call if that were you. So Kinsley says, yeah, there's a guarantee that comes with it. Absolutely. Right? We stay with you until you get your job. We're not going to leave anybody by the side of the road. Absolutely, there's a guarantee. If you're interested, book a call with us and we can tell you more about it. Yeah, we can tell you all about it. So just want to acknowledge everybody for being here. I know being on the job hunt is not for the faint of heart. If you're listening to the recording, I give you a salute. Thank you for getting all the way to the end. Even if you listen to me at 1.5 speed, and now I'm going to talk really fast, so it's going to be super, super fast. Isn't that crazy that I just did that? So look, guys, you're going to work this out. And if you want to get this handled faster and you're tired of doing this on your own, and if you're tired of getting the same results from doing the same thing over and over, like, yeah, book a call with us and let's get this handled. And I just wish you all the best, guys. I wish you all the best. Take care of yourselves. See you soon.